Look, I hate to break it to you people, but Jon is not a very good Punisher. As a matter of fact, even Dolph Lundgren's Punisher is a better Punisher. We all know Ray Stevenson is the GOAT, but we'll get into that later. And I've already made a video about that, which I will link below. And I know this is going to upset a lot of people. No, 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 no. I know it is. I know it is. If that upsets you, I'm sorry. It's just my opinion. But why does Punisher look like a DJ at a pool party? I'm serious. This is supposed to be Frank Castle, the most feared man in the Marvel Universe, and he's got a Pauly D blowout and a beard. I'm about to break it down for you now. Stay tuned.
Hero Bishop Show, Hero Bishop Show, it's party time, it's excellent. Hero Bishop Show, Hero Bishop Show, it's party time, it's excellent.
Now I get it, man. When he first came out in Daredevil and then his own series, we hadn't seen a violent version of Punisher like that since the goated Warzone movie with Ray Stevenson. So maybe people saw the anger, the violence, and they got happy. And they tricked themselves into thinking, oh, this is the best Punisher. And maybe there was a lot of people who weren't comic book fans. They were just Netflix watching general public, normies, which seems to be the case with a lot of these superhero interpretations that everybody loves. So they thought it was the best Punisher. But all the other Punishers have one thing in common. They at least looked like some version of the Punisher. I would say Dolph Lundgren and Thomas Jane were more like the Jim Lee versions. And I would say Ray Stevenson is like the goated Punisher Warzone version, John Romita Jr., Chuck Dixon, or the Garth Ennis run of Punisher. But the thing that all these had in common was not only were they more accurate versions of the Punisher, cold, calculated, methodical killers on a mission, and looked more like the Punisher, but they also weren't an emotional, psychotic, freaked out wreck like this version of Frank Castle. I couldn't tell if Netflix Punisher was a soap opera or what.
As long as I was at war, I never thought about what happened next. What I was gonna do when it was over.
And don't even get me started on Jigsaw, who looked like a male model with one little scar, when we just had a comic accurate Jigsaw in Warzone, which everybody seems to completely forget. Ray Stevenson looked just like the Punisher. His Jigsaw looked just like Jigsaw. That movie had the violence of Punisher Netflix, but also comic appeal. But like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into that because I already made a video about why Ray is the GOAT, and I'll link it at the end of this. And you know what? I used to kind of like this version of the Punisher, but then I went back and rewatched all the Punisher movies, read some comics that I hadn't read in a while, and I realized this is the most inaccurate version of Punisher that there is. And I used to think that was Dolph Lundgren's. But now, compared to this, Dolph Lundgren was great. Why does this version of the Punisher feel like he went and got a lineup before a shootout? Why does he have a beard? Why is he wearing a hoodie? Why is he always freaking out and over emotional? The one thing these other versions of the Punisher had in common, like I've already said, were they were very calculated. They had the reasoning. They had the backstory. They were these Italian dudes. They were avenging their family who got killed by the mob. I can't remember if they said that in the Dolph Lundgren version, and I know they did in the Thomas Jane version, and I know for a fact they did in the Ray Stevenson version. But in this one, we have a modernized version of the Punisher. No disrespect to veterans, but this is a modernized version of the Punisher, and the story was a lot different. And maybe they're basing it off of some newer comics, but pretty much past the 90s is when comics started fucking going downhill anyway, and they started changing everything. And yeah, I know there was versions of Frank in the comics where he had a beard and shit, but that just doesn't look like Punisher, man. Doesn't look like classic Punisher. And the sad thing about Jon's Punisher is he actually, his face, his nose, everything about him looks like the Punisher Warzone John Romita Jr. version. They just, dude, He either has like a soccer player haircut or a Pauly D blowout. If you shave this dude, gave him the 5 o'clock shadow and slicked his hair back, he would look just like Warzone John Romita Jr. Punisher. And that would at least help him to look comic accurate. And in most of the comics, Frank does not have a beard. He does not have a Pauly D blowout. He's not wearing hoodies. He's not over emotional wreck, hiding, reclusing, crying, freaking out all the time. He's very methodical. He's a military man. He's pretty much the quintessential 80s and 90s action hero. He's stripped down, military, functional, a zoned in, cold, calculated killer, not an over emotional wreck who's freaking out all the time. He's not supposed to look emotional. He's not supposed to look like a bum. He's supposed to look like a consequence, a zoned in distributor of justice. Because the justice system failed him. Now he is the law, almost like Judge Dredd. I know he's supposed to hate cops because they failed him and all that, but he's taken the law into his own hands. He's an anti-hero, a vigilante. And these differences hit hard because not all Punishers look the same or feel the same. Let's talk about Ray Stevenson. Ray Stevenson, this right here, this is the Punisher from the comics. This is the most accurate Punisher ever on screen. Ray Stevenson didn't play Frank Castle like a man. He played Frank Castle like a system. He played Frank Castle like a panel from the comics. Cold, precise, no wasted movement. Just punching faces in, shooting criminals, delivering justice, taking down the mob. Lines him up, he executes him, he's gone. I said it before in my other video, but the whole opening scene of Warzone, where he's hanging from the chandeliers, takes out that whole mob family, wastes everyone. That whole opening scene is more Punisher than anything Jon's ever been in. Jon already died with his family, and the only thing that's left is vengeance. And not some out of control, fucking wigged out vengeance. A mission. A plan. And he executes it perfectly. No confusion about what there is to do. Has a plan, sticks to it. And I cannot stress enough the look of his Punisher, bro. He looks like he just stepped out of a comic panel. The only thing I would change is I would make the skull bigger on the front of his chest. And then you got Jon's version. His Punisher, way too emotional, always freaking out, scatterbrained, all over the place, always going, ooh, What are you, fucking Wolverine, bro? What's up with his Wolvie berserker rage? And do people just like this dude because he was in The Walking Dead? Because he's a popular actor at the time? Do all the people who think he's the greatest version of the Punisher, are they even fans of the Punisher? Are they even fans of the comics? Or are they just hangovers from The Walking Dead and normies who saw the show on Netflix and thought, hell yeah, this dude's violent and cool? He's emotional, reactive, violent, crying, always on edge. He yells, he snaps, he reacts. He's not hurting criminals, he's reacting to them. And maybe the special that's coming up will be better. Maybe he will redeem himself. Maybe he will make a comic accurate version of the Punisher. But already, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it at all. I don't even know if I'm going to watch it yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I want to. I want to give it a chance. I want to try. I want to be proven wrong. But I just don't think it's going to happen. His version doesn't have Punisher energy. He has Wolverine energy. Wolverine goes berserk. Punisher doesn't. He plans and he executes. Now, to be fair, this version of Frank is trying to show trauma, PTSD, Frank's battles that he's going on, the human side of Frank Castle. I get it. But the more emotional he becomes, the less he feels like the Punisher from the comics. And the more he feels like a man spiraling out of control with a gun. Like falling down or something. You remember that movie? And at a certain point, he stops feeling like a vigilante and starts feeling like a liability. Ray Stevenson's Punisher is what happens when a man becomes a mission. Bernthal's Punisher is what happens when a man can't escape his mission. When a man's living in the past. You take away the look, which The only thing that even looks like the Punisher is the half of the time when he's wearing the skull. Nothing else looks like the Punisher. But you take away the look, you take away the control, and he doesn't feel like a force of nature. He feels like a guy who's kind of crazy. One is a war machine, one is a war casualty, plain and simple. Be real. Which Punisher are you picking? Jon, Jane, Stevenson, Lundgren, Warzone Comics, War Journal Comics, Garth Ennis Punisher. Which one are you picking? And which one do you think is the most comic accurate on screen? Because if I have to compare the two most current versions, Jon and Ray, one of them feels like the Punisher straight out of the comic, and one feels like a man trying to play Punisher, but just doesn't quite get it. Now, I appreciate you watching. I know this is going to make a lot of people mad. No disrespect. You can like what you like, but I want to hear your counter arguments if you don't agree. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Much love and respect. Peace.